Okay, hey everyone, thanks for joining. This is Bitcoin Core App Design Call number 68. Good group here. I think I don't have a Google Doc prepared for this one. Um, I can put that together real quick if you'd like. Otherwise, we can just do it verbally if we can remember things. I think the Harold said you have some dev updates. And then I
Yep.
saw Michael just pushed an update to the design docs um, just a little bit ago. And then I did one for pushed an update to the send page in the design docs. And then what else do we have?
I put together a document about silent payments after my working session with Josie in Amsterdam, so I can share a bit about that. It's still in its rough stage, but the main structure is in there, so I can share that as well.
Awesome.
Cool. We can just, well, I guess we have one document that we just keep reusing for calls. So I'm going to share that real quick and I'll just start loading things in there. Harold, why don't you start? Would you like to start?
Yeah. So this past week, I promise work got done. Going through these old branches. Now, the only reason they're not open right now is we're in a bit of a situation with the wiring and how this wiring occurs. So let me explain where we're at. So, in the upstream repo, we've switched away from Cirrus in terms of using, and we're using GitHub Actions. And that's because Cirrus was no longer free. Habasso did the migration there for a couple of platforms to GitHub Actions, and we have some of that in here. But these older branches, we're adding packages to Cirrus, and so that's changed. And so I have to talk with Habasso about how it should be done with GitHub Actions. And so that relates to doing the data directory picking. So with the data directory picking, we're adding some new packages that it needs to build with. So that needs to be wired correctly there. Then for our data directory picking, we're still doing queue settings, and actually queue settings is the correct way to do it. That's one thing I talked to Shores about. I was thinking about what if we wired this into the options model, so it'd write into settings.json, but there's a dependency graph there that wouldn't work in terms of where core looks to check values. So the correct way is queue settings. That's interesting. So then if we're using queue settings, then for the next few PRs to finish up that 1.1, polishing it up like the Tor configuration, the proxy configuration, those are also going to be setting some queue settings. And so then it's not a good idea for it to be in theme. So then we're going to have a new file for the settings.json, which acts as a singleton. But yeah, so there's just that. There's like a dependency going from figuring out adding what to GitHub Actions, and then from there on, finish out opening PRs for finishing. And I've fleshed out those branches, so the functionality works there, at least for the dynamic builds, but that needs to be adjusted for the static builds. So the static builds are depends builds, CI builds. So that would be for 1.1. A couple of things also, because we're working on the QML GUI, but at the same time, we are in a way responsible for of the. There were a few bugs that had to be taken care of. Showing.
So you're really breaking up for me right now.
Same for me as well.
For me too.
Can you?
Yeah. It actually started good, and then it got worse every 10 seconds or so. I'm going to turn off my video.
Now, or?
I mean, you'll just have to keep talking, I guess, and then we can tell you. It's hard to. Can you say something else, please? But I mean, overall, it sounds like there's a lot of kind of infrastructural stuff happening due to some changes in the main repo. And then you just said that there were some bugs on the Qt widgets, some things that had to be fixed there. Is that about right?
Hold on. Can
No,
you
it's
hear me?
better. No, it's good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so so a couple of things that had to be fixed with the Qt widgets GUI. I did message one thing in the Discord about used. So when a wallet has a void reuse, that if we have time for that, we can talk about that as well. But now I don't know what you guys heard or not. Did you hear most of it or?
I think I heard most of it.
Okay.
Yeah,
How about
I
everyone
also
else?
heard most of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I personally don't have insight into some of this architectural stuff that's going on. I kind of roughly understand how there was a move from one build system or a provider to another one, and then some other stuff that had to be fixed. And then some of these are necessary to be done to then be able to address some stuff in the 1.1 polish milestone, like the directory picker. So there's some dependency stuff that has to be done first in order to wrap up that milestone. Is that about right?
Oh, yeah, but also one more thing, since we have John here, and this also just relates to us. We are moving. We're bumping some dependencies, and we want to use Xcode 15, and we want to use C++ 20. Qt 5.15 has an issue with compiling against Xcode 15, and so that needs to be fixed. I guess some of us here can address it, but just putting it out there that this is also one thing looming over us.
Yeah. So in practical terms, how's the pace? How's the rhythm in terms of developing the GUI? Is there all this other stuff basically keeping that development from going on, or is there stuff happening, or how is it
No,
looking?
so none of this is really preventing. It's more of this week was one of the first weeks where I was able to do deep work and dig back in. So that's previously for that would have been me. So this is, I guess, concurrent with development of the GUI. This is on a slightly different layer because where we're at in the repo, we can just build out pretty much what we want and then adapt when we pull in different changes, right?
Yeah.
So it's not really preventing, but it is, I guess, a bandwidth consumer, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
it's something to keep in mind, and I guess that can slow down a little bit, but it doesn't prevent.
Yeah.
Hey, Harolrod, could you shoot me a link to the 1.1 kind of milestone development area, wherever that's happening upstream?
Yeah. So I think Christoph, if you can remind. So I think 1.1, we don't have it on the website. So 1.1, I guess we should document it, right, Christoph? I can document what exactly was needed for that again, and we can put something on it for the website.
So, Mr. Gnome, are you looking for the live code that's being worked on there right now, or which?
Yes,
Okay.
specific. Yeah, I'm not looking necessarily for the development milestones, but I'm looking for the place where, for example, the GitHub Actions integrations is going on, just so I can kind of like observe and onboard myself a little bit by customizing myself to the way things are done.
Yeah, so for that, I can send you a link after I tag a couple of things with 1.1, and then you can look at that.
Yeah, we have a bit of a separate design milestone for it, and then the technical milestone. They just look really, really different. But it's mostly small stuff, right? It's the directory picker. It's some alert for external links, just really minor stuff, right?
It's all small stuff, but like it's the glue that keeps everything together. That small stuff kind of matters at the end of the day, but it's good learning material for me.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Harold can maybe answer your questions, your specific questions in way more detail because I'm not so close in touch with all the development work.
Yeah, still meaning to really onboard Mr. Gnome and Pablo. I was reviewing some of his PRs for the Qt Widgets GUI. He'd be a great he'd be of great value for our project here.
Awesome. Yeah. You mentioned the reuse thing. I saw that you posted something about it. I don't know what that means. I know like the 4 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. I forgot the first one. I learned that from when my son learned it in kindergarten, but I'm sure that's a different thing. So what is reuse meant? It's some, yeah, I couldn't quite figure it out, and Google wasn't really helpful either.
Yeah, so when you create a wallet with the Qt Widgets GUI, you don't have all of the create wallet options that exist within the RPC for it to create wallets. So there's a couple of options that maybe you've never like seen when creating a wallet within the GUI. And one of these is you can set a flag, avoid reuse, and when that's set to true, essentially once you've spent from one address, you can never spend from it again. So let's say you spent from address 1, right? And then somebody sends you Bitcoin to address 1 again, you won't be able to spend from address 1 again from that wallet. And that's for preserving privacy. So not linking transactions together that might be it's really all for privacy. So not spending from an address that you've already used, so that you don't get chain analysis done on you or any of these other tools. So it's a interesting option for the wallet, right? When you think of like a regular user. So yeah, it's an interesting design challenge, but yeah. So what the flag does is just you can't spend from an address you've already spent from.
Okay, and so that's pretty hardcore. It's like you're giving up on those funds, and
So
yeah,
you have the key, right? So why I was thinking it's an interesting design challenge is, well, when you need to spend it, then we need to tell you how you can spend it. And that essentially means creating a new wallet or migrating to a new wallet that doesn't have this flag set. But with the same, extended private key or whatever other descriptor material, just the flag isn't set on that. But so in terms of the issue that I posted, really, we'd only need to show that there is a use balance that's unusable. But within our project and how we might move forward, we might want to think about, well, okay, you've used this address, but your brother sent you X amount of funds, right? And you need to use it. So how do you end up using it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hardcore to completely forbid it. Another option is to simply ask someone if they're sure and tell them about what this actually means, and ask them to be incredibly thorough about this decision, which does not completely prohibit them, but hopefully ensures that the decision is a good one in the end.
Yeah. I think that there's a reason why that when you create a wallet, and so we don't have documentation on why decisions are made the way they are, but we will with this project. I imagine there was a decision not to include it within the GUI, probably because of the amount of headache it could bring to people who don't know what they're doing. Of course, you could always go into the console and create this type of wallet. But for many people, they might not know the true repercussions for setting that flag.
Yeah, so it's not something that can be changed again later. It's just...
Yeah, so within that wallet, you can't change it. You would have to create a new wallet that has the same key material, but just doesn't set the flag, avoid reuse.
Effectively, you'd be doing a recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Is there any merit to the idea that you might do this for reasons beyond privacy? Like, for example, say you're avoiding pay to public key taproot addresses for paranoid quantum vulnerabilities. Is that a viable use case for this flag?
I mean, the flag can be used for however you want to use it. It prevents you spending from an address you've already received from. So whatever personal use case that might bring, um, it's definitely valid. I guess the reason it was made though is mainly for chain analysis and not linking transactions together.
Cool. Thank you.
And if I create a wallet with this flag and I import it into the GUI, that it will also apply there. So we have to support it in a way.
Yeah. So if you were to import this wallet and it's avoid reuse, then yeah.
Okay. We cannot set this, but needs to support via import. Okay, gotcha. Interesting. Cool.
I love these esoteric flags. This is what Bitcoin's about to me, is these extreme configurability options.
Yeah, these RPCs, when you do like help create wallet, you can see all the flags that are available. Yeah, and we can support this within here if it's valuable, and if we get across, the educational part of it, like what could happen. But that would be interesting to allow more configurability for all of these things.
Back again.
So for something like that, it is a feature request on the Qt widgets GUI. Right. So the timeline here is, even if this entire thing was done for the next release, there's still a migration process, right? So at least another release cycle. So this seems like a valid feature request, although the old GUI is in maintenance mode. It seems like a valid feature request to open against that repo.
Sorry, I missed just a second. So that the reuse one is a valid feature request
For the old,
the
for
old
us,
Yeah.
for us, and for in terms of creating a PR for the old GUI, yeah.
Okay. Do you want the group here also to chime in on how to implement this in the Qt widgets GUI, or?
Yeah. So that is why I sent it here. Like, what would you guys think about this field? We could just add a new field, right? It just says use this. But if you guys have time, it would be nice to get some design opinion on that.
Yeah, and of course, because the wallet's in maintenance mode and it's Qt widgets, there are all kinds of restrictions there where you want to kind of have very little. You want to use the existing features and layouts with minimal changes, but just the right changes.
Yeah. So yeah.
Did we lose him, or did?
No, we lost him. Yeah, I lost him as well.
Yeah.
I just had the same loss. I just went back and I don't know what's going on.
Sorry, Jitsi is always bugging out on me. I get kicked out. But yeah, we're not making UI changes. We're just adding that feature in.
Okay. I just took a note in the Google Doc. Okay, cool. All good on that issue. And so, what's coming up with Dev? Any design support you need? Anything missing?
Yeah. So for 1.1, no. But as we move along, I'll let you guys know.
Okay, cool. And then for testing, etc., also just let us know.
Yep.
Cool.
And for Android testing, for now, I'll have to provide a binary. So when these PRs are updated and opened, we can figure out a way for me to give you the Android binaries. Maybe I send it in Discord or.
For the testing, I know the last time we did the live Gorilla testing of the onboarding flow. What would we be testing this time? Would we be testing the onboarding plus?
So 1.1 polish includes a series of small changes.
Yeah.
So it's probably best to I mean, of course, go over the whole flow. That's always a good thing to do. But
Yeah.
maybe try to specifically look out for those things. Like I think if the file picker or directory picker is in there, just go in and change the directory 5 times, for example.
Yeah, I had another question actually as well. Is I remember when we did the live gorilla testing as well. I know this might go a little bit off topic, but we had there were some issues with people who already had the GUI installed, and then they were not seeing the onboarding flow because they already had the GUI installed, and then they had to go back and I don't know change some files or do something. I remember that as that being one of the issues. Do you know if we kind of address that in any way?
So what's happening there is the OS default data directory exists. And so whenever you operate in that manner, or whenever it exists there and you were to run any GUI binary, there is no onboarding to be done because within that directory, there's certain things. You might have certain values. You might have already had a wallet. You have a chain state. You have blocked data. So we just use that by default. We can change this behavior, as in, because it's a new GUI, I guess we could make the point that people would want to know that we're going to use this data directory. So a window could come up that says you already have this data directory here. Do you want to use it or do you want to use another one? But the way it's always worked is if you have this default directory, then onboarding is skipped.
The way I've got my QML GUI set up that I've been, tinkering and playing with for my own edification is like I've got it set up so I can re-go through the onboarding if I choose to change my settings or apply different things. I don't know if that's something that general users would be interested in or people that already have configurations might be interested in, but it's something that I liked.
Yeah.
I think a big thing was that it simply crashed for some people that had existing existing. Well, that is the big thing to fix.
That's a big thing. Yeah. Yeah.
It crashed for people with existing.
Yeah, there was something with existing files being imported and crashing the application.
Yeah, I'll look it up
in testing. Yeah. I mean that's the primary thing to fix.
Yeah, I'll share it again in the Discord group. But yeah.
Yeah, but in general, I think it would be good to kind of be transparent about it to the user to say, hey, you don't need to. So we found something, we're going to use this. Do you want to use this or something else? Just so that you basically are that it's transparent, and then you can maybe change stuff if you choose to. It's kind of like an onboarding light, because you already have the data and the directories that you need, but you're still using a new GUI, so kind of a secondary path through the onboarding flow is, I think, warranted.
Okay, just keep in mind that we want special logic, so the first time that you run the new GUI, we can ask about this. But then every time that you run it afterwards, we don't want to ask about this because you confirmed that. So that goes back to an old branch that Johnny has about this onboarding settings.json value. So with the new GUI, we can introduce logic that says, have you onboarded? And it'll only apply to this new GUI because the Qt widgets GUI doesn't have that logic. So when you run the new QML GUI with Johnny's branch, we could introduce the functionality. So when you first run it, we'll ask even if this directory exists, and then afterwards it knows that you onboarded, so it won't ask.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think.
Yeah, that would be good.
Be needed.
Okay, how about we document that in the design docs and in the first use page about this, because we've discussed it like 3 times now already, so we should put it in the design docs. Then I'm putting a note in our Google Doc for the notes, so we can add that.
Yeah.
Cool.
maybe this is a paranoid concern, but I see in my mind all these users that don't really understand their configuration settings, that have used various tools and packages to set up their IPC for their node, and they want to try out this new GUI, and they maybe do it without using the kind of package manager or whatever they've used to install their existing one. Is it possible that they overwrite good config settings through our onboarding tools and then have no understanding of what they were and no way to go back?
If we're using their settings, then we're not overwriting it until they were to go into settings and change it themselves. So I don't think that's possible there. So for example, if we onboard and we're asking, okay, you have this, then we're just going to use what's there. We're not going to impose any new values. Is that the scenario you were thinking about?
Yeah. I'm assuming that not knowing what they're doing, they're going to go through the new onboarding to refresh their values and learn about this brilliant UI and all the things that they're curious about. And in doing so, they're going to possibly overwrite, like say RPC configuration information. Let's say that it's an older service and it's configured to use username and password RPC related config files. Let's say for whatever reason we overwrote them. The user wouldn't have a reference of their good config that they had. They wouldn't understand what had changed because they never made their good config in the first place, or their new config. They just went through this onboarding wizard. I'm just generally kind of thinking about what a very ignorant but button click happy user might experience.
Yeah, so that's a great reason why we don't even touch the Bitcoin conf at all. So stuff like that would be in the Bitcoin conf, and
Sure.
we just can't write or do anything to it at all. So they wouldn't be in the settings.json. But I guess there's a safety aspect there. If we're doing the new onboarding, maybe there's visual elements that can show, okay, you've chosen a directory. There are some values there already. And we can visually show that we've imported this into the configuration. And then afterwards, they can change it still within onboarding, if that makes sense. But just as long as we show, hey, you had set this. Christoph, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. We can. How about we just mock something up?
Yeah.
So mock up.
Yeah, I like the idea that it's about informing the user of to what their current reality is, as well as what their options are.
But there is a matrix of so many different scenarios, and so of course we'll do testing to make sure we're not blowing up anyone's environment. Definitely something we should do.
Yeah, and from the design side, it's kind of easy to mock up a UI that says, "Hey, you have some old settings, here's some new ones," but then actually knowing what kind of the sensitive ones are that people may not want to have overwritten, what kind of potentially common scenarios are, that's something that we would have to all figure out together and potentially document. As a designer, I would not know what those are.
Yeah, where you have to know where the danger zone is, right? And I wouldn't. I'm one of the people that were just described. This button happy click dummies.
I think that another thing from interviewing the users as well is in this advice and education around settings is the storage thing as well. And in terms of the options that they have in terms of the storage space it takes up, because with the people that I spoke to, a lot of them just turned away from using the GUI because it slowed down their computer. So they're not aware that there's other lighter options of running it on their computer.
Yeah, that's we already have that. That's a separate part of the onboarding, but that needs to be optimized where it becomes a little bit more intelligent.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. What else? So you got a bit of documentation there to update. anything else on that one, or should we move on?
I guess we can move on.
Okay. So I'll just share that page real quick. So I'll put that page here in the chat. It's the send 1.7 milestone. It's been long on my list. It's just taking the old designs we all worked on, I don't know, half a year ago, whenever that was, and just putting them, picking out some of the proper ones and putting them in a slightly organized way into this documentation page. And none of this is really final or perfectly thought out. There are lots of stuff missing, but it's better than what was there before, which was very little. So yeah, the send flow can get really, really complex with all of these potential ways of signing, and especially if we include miniscript and batching and PSBTs and all of this stuff in there. So there'll be a pretty big milestone to figure that out in detail. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the design state that we do have, the early one, is also in the documents. And that was it. And I think now I'm done with putting all the Figma stuff on the design docs.
This is amazing, good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
Cool. And yeah, feel free to leave comments, put great pull requests. Let me know if anything's missing or whatnot. Then I think otherwise, we'll get to that milestone and then we will really all dive in together in depth on it. And then Michael was just created a draft pull request for milestone 1.3 documentation updates for the wallet import flow. Michael, do you want to give an update on that one?
Yeah, I still, again, I can't get my laptop to serve so Jekyll still kills me all the time. But yeah, I started writing out basically what we have in the Figma file, and kind of writing it all out. And I'm, in contrast to kind of this miniscript page, I'm doing it in Sublime Text in the text editor directly, which is nice. But yeah, I would expect to have something ready probably by the end of this week or maybe on Monday, that yeah, we can have a proper review on.
Cool.
That's about it. And what I also try to have there in the design docs or on the pages, kind of a section about exception and error handling. So, but we can discuss whether we want to have that on the page or not. But there are certain kind of scenarios that might make sense to call them out in the design docs, but I'm not sure about that. But we can address that probably later. I'm just putting it together for now.
Yeah.
And then at some point probably we want to move the screens over to the main file.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I look forward to seeing that. Yeah. Also, while we're on this, it reminds me, Christoph, I saw a tweet you posted about addresses, and I thought that was really interesting. And I don't see it reflected in the designs. Here, I'll link to what it is.
Yeah, and we've actually had that in the Bitcoin design guide for a long time. Yeah, just I was doing some Bitcoin stuff over the weekend or whenever that was, and it's like everything's so small. They ask like, please verify, and you can't barely even read it. Maybe it's just me getting old. But yeah, with a bit of typographic tweaks, I think this experience can be made a lot nicer. Yeah.
And you see a lot more apps actually going in that direction, or even kind of truncating stuff in the middle, so that it goes into that direction anyway. So which is good actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
like what you've done here in this tweet.
let's.
Yeah, it was a nice one, and Christoph, I saw that, and I'm using that in a separate context that I'm building that kind of an interface for, and I'm doing that with not just for the address, but for adding an expert also.
For me personally, I've seen this tweet as well. There's so much of eye strain when needing to verify addresses, even just when I'm on my PC itself. So I do it mainly on my PC, but even on the phone, it just gets even worse. Um, this is such a simple solution.
Yeah, it also gamifies checking, right? Because it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Versus if it's just the long string of text, people might just check BC1Q. Okay, it's the same address.
Yeah.
It's like you didn't verify anything at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
And Trezor says it's coming soon, so that's interesting.
I think
Yeah,
for those reasons,
Seed Signer as well. They have it or they don't have this kind of grouping into like 4 characters, but they also highlight like the first 6 and the last 6 or 7 to kind of make it a bit easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see it a lot.
Yeah, 4 is basically what credit cards use also, so it's already kind of familiar. 6 kind of makes sense because some address formats you do have the same 4, 3, 4, 5 characters at the beginning for every single one, so it's kind of useless. But if you look at the tweet from the CC Binance guy, he basically said that the scammers generate addresses that look the same as your addresses at the beginning
Wow.
and end, but the middle's different, and you have to be careful. But I do think Daniel replied to that conversation. I don't know if it was Twitter or somewhere else, to basically highlight dust addresses in the UI anyways, and maybe recommend not to use those in those types of situations. So, but yeah, making some UIs do hide the middle and make it not available at all. That's also problematic. You should be able to just click it and then see it big.
And expand it, yeah.
Yeah. That was a good one.
Awesome. Let's make them gigantic 200-point fonts. Let's go.
If you guys like, I can share about the silent payments. If you just a short introduction, if Michael, unless Michael wants to chat more.
No, just one more thing. I had a call with Utibe on Monday as well to
Nice.
kind of help him on board, and so he wasn't really sure what to tackle on next, or what to work on. So we decided to just because I'm wrapping up milestone 1.3 and would then be ready to start the next one, which is kind of related, right? The create wallet flow. So we created a new Figma file with that. Each of us has their kind of workspace page there, and we're just gonna kind of start consolidating, putting stuff together there, and so kind of keep hacking at it probably from next week onwards. So and we'll share that the link to that file that other people can also contribute and comment and stuff. That's kind of more forward looking.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So maybe onboard a new designer here.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
Uti is also helping out with one of the teams for the Legends of Lightning hackathon. Slips my mind.
Yeah,
Which one
the
it was.
Resolver. I think
Yes,
it's this escrow project.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool.
Okay, silent payments.
Right. So thank goodness for Josie, because I think about 2 weeks ago I went to Amsterdam and I met Josie, one of the core devs. He works on silent payments amongst other things. like kernel, and he sat me down and we did a working session on what silent payments are. So I just created this Google document here, which is still in a slightly messy phase. But he explained everything to me like explained to a 5-year-old, and now I understand what silent payments are. So silent payments solves the problem in terms of normally Bitcoin transactions always need one person to interact with another person for that initial address or QR code or whatever to be sent. He said that previous solutions in the past were the XPub as well as BIP47, and silent payments is this protocol level solution, which it removes the need for two people to interact when they make a transaction. So they don't need to interact to make a transaction. There's no on-chain notifications and there's more protection. So the privacy thing is quite a big one. And the use cases for this, like it really, I'll go into the use cases, but it's super useful for people who really need to protect their privacy. So there's this code which generates these addresses, and every single address is new. The use cases, this is a really interesting one. Basically, activists, countries where Bitcoin is not allowed, developers who work on Bitcoin, they could use the address on their social media. And it would not be linked to an on-chain address. This use case is not here. This is not a specific use case, but this is like, they could be a contact name option as well. So they could be like Adam, and Adam could be linked to silent payment address XYZ. The other part that he's still working on is this thing called the PGP key to make sure that, so my question for him was, if a static code becomes something that's linked to a person's name, then how do you know you're paying the same Adam? So if Adam here and Adam there, how do you know you're paying the same Adam? He said in the future there would be something called a PGP key to verify that it would be the same, it would be that Adam, but that's a bit far ahead in terms of implementation. Okay, The benefits would be convenience, no interaction, and privacy. So the send flow is pretty straightforward. The send flow, the receive flow would have to do in the creation of the wallet process. So when someone is actually creating their wallet, there would be a prompt that they would get to say, hey, do you want to enable silent payment? They get a silent payment code, and then they can possibly even assign their name to the silent payment code. It could be a QR, it could be an avatar, it could even be a URL, or a name. So this is kind of the receive flow. The send flow, we didn't come up with many use cases, but let's say someone wants to donate to a particular activist and they would like to, make multiple donations without that being visible publicly, then they could use the static code to do that. And the send flow, I wrote here back end and front end. They would basically click send. They would enter the static code into the field address. The wallet would recognize that it's a static code address, and then they would be prompted to say like, hey, we see you're using a code, a reusable code. They would then save the static code and then the name of the person. So that goes into the contact split as well. The address would be saved, and then they would come back to the send screen, and then the user would click send. So yeah, basically that's it in a nutshell. In the send flow, it touches on the actual send screen itself, as well as the contact screen, and in the receive flow, it touches on the creation of the wallet process. But yeah, it would be, the way that he explained it to me is that if a static code could be assigned to a person's name, then it would literally mimic the traditional banking applications where you just type in Adam into your send, and then it gets sent to him because it automatically recognizes, a very fluid user experience, as opposed to seeing a very long Bitcoin address. So
It's going to lead to a bit of squatting, isn't it?
sorry?
I say it sounds like that might lead to some squatting, like DNS squatting.
What is DNS squatting? I'm not
Like
sure.
taking as many names as you possibly can and pre-registering as many values that you think will have use commercially or whatever.
But
Yeah.
how would that even work to choose a name, a word, and associate that with the code?
Yeah, so the PGP key thing there, those exist, right? So you can sign for any piece of data, and so somebody would need to sign with their PGP key that they control this address, and then you'd verify after having known the person that this PGP key does belong to that person. I'm just thinking this is actually a pretty complicated setup. I'd love to see how that matures, but you would then need a server that aggregates this data for the wallet and tells it, okay, well, this PGP key signed for this static code. Yeah, so that would be an interesting thing. Although the good thing is they're just static codes. So if you wanted to, register as many static codes as you wanted to, you really are free to do so. They're not like URLs in terms of like taking up Amazon.com and whatever these types of URLs that you could think of. So in terms of that, it's safe there. The verification thing though, that's a really complicated, and that require so.
But if I'm using like my name as part of the derivation process for this static code to generate my relevant addresses, a lot of people maybe have my name.
Yeah, exactly.
They wouldn't all be able to use it. And I mean, I don't think that the PGP key part, that's more of a verification part. I don't think that that's part of the actual derivation, is it?
Yeah. So in terms of the server that would be giving the information, yeah, people could register these names. But yeah, that's definitely outside of what we want to do here, though, which is just the functionality for sending and receiving.
Yeah, and we don't want servers anyways. I mean, that's what what was it? The NIM people, was it what are the two privacy wallets? One of them Samurai or Wasabi or so. They had this NIM thing, which was whatever. And then they basically created a centralized server around it where you could say, well, I want to send to Mo. And then it asked that one server, like, what's Mo's address? And then, but it's not something that we really ever want to do. Right.
Yeah, but in terms of sending and receiving here, there's obviously a clear benefit, especially if you're getting regular payments from someone.
Yeah.
As I have, the
oh no,
you've gone. So maybe the initial implementation would be like no name assigned to it, because that is a problem, I think, in this whole setup that needs to be solved still. Maybe just
So take a look at the contact page that I linked to in the design guide, where we basically have a lot of this stuff already laid out. How someone adds contacts, that when let's say one of these codes is on your clipboard, that the UI asks you, hey, this is one of those codes. Would you like to assign it to a contact, an existing one or a new one or so? So the UI helps you stay organized by being a little bit proactive. Or let's say you get a transaction coming in, you can very easily assign it to a person or something. So a lot of this stuff, and in the design guide we have for the daily spending wallet, which is focused on Lightning, and we will have the same dynamic basically going with almost the same with Bolt 12 addresses, which are also static payment codes, but for Lightning. And of course, they function differently in some ways. But for the user, it's like, hey, here's a code. I can share it. Other people can pay to it. And I want to have a name instead of this complex string that I want to deal with.
Mo, could you link that document in the chat?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I worked on it today, so I'm going to send it to Josie today, tomorrow, so that he can see if indeed I understood it correctly from our discussion, and then he will correct anything.
Awesome.
But yeah, eventually, thank you. Eventually, he'd like to create a website around this. So this is the bare bones starting document to kind of kick off some awareness and some understanding about the silent payments. HRF is very interested in this as well because there's a lot of countries where there's there's activists and there's people who just are in positions where they cannot be publicly known in terms of receiving Bitcoin, and this is very, very practical for them, and helps them a lot. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We have about 5 minutes to the hour. Of course, we can always go longer, or we can stop right now, based on what everyone wants to do. Did we miss anything? Any big topic that we didn't go over? Anything actionable that we need to get on?
I still need to work on summarizing the research. I made a conscious decision to work on the silent payments today, but I will get to it at some point this week or next week. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear about the takeaways from there.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I don't know. I think Harold. I think generally, I feel like the design is pretty far ahead of development at this moment. Yeah. So we are, which is good. That's generally a really good thing. But that also means that we can also help with QA testing, anything else, any other designs, any mockups you might need. Just shout out.
Yep, we'll do whenever that comes up.
Cool.
So any last topics, or do we wrap up a bit early?
So I have one question that has nothing to do with anything. What do you think of the Who is Bitcoin video?
Wait, what was that?
Who is Bitcoin?
Oh, wait, what is that?
Okay. Hold on. Let me share that link. But something maybe for you.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a cool video. Christoph, you seem to be a fan of it. You had it as your background.
Yeah, of course.
Just shilling it. I love it.
Did you guys work on that, or?
Not me. I didn't work on it.
No.
Me neither.
Did you guys know about it, or was this a surprise that your grantor posts this video?
We gave feedback.
We gave some feedback. Yeah.
NDA. Can't say.
I didn't. I didn't know anything.
It was Secret Service underground project.
Yeah.
No, it's a cool video. It's interesting to have a character like that. Yeah. So.
Cool.
Did you guys?
I mean, it's a fun way and a new way of kind of make it with or a lot less serious, because there's so much seriousness and emotions and and the fighting going on. But yeah, I'll be I'd be curious to know how kind of no coiners or pre-coiners like it, because for me it's a bit hard to assess whether it serves that function.
Yeah.
But I like it.
Yeah, it's always hard to tell when you're so close to the material how everyone else sees things and if this reaches people. But yeah, I'm very curious too. Cool. Sorry,
right.
we covered these 5 minutes with totally irrelevant conversation. Well, kind of topical, but not relevant to this project.
Christoph, I'm just wondering if there is a call next week. I'm just thinking maybe that we could chat about that, because I know you're at a conference or an event.
I'll be back.
All right. Okay. Cool.
By Sunday. Just a short one.
Yeah, and on that, Christoph, thanks for posting those issues. I'll post them again from now on. Sorry for taking a break on that.
Oh, which issues were those? I don't even remember.
No, for these calls.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Did you guys see the call issue cover for this call? It's super nice. Did you see that?
I will look at it right now.
That is some AI speciality going on.
The Lego
The Lego
Bitcoin
one.
machine.
Yeah, go have a look at that. Let me just. Do you guys have the link to that?
Oh yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I'm
something.
going to stop the recording. I don't know if this is interesting for anyone watching on YouTube, but we can keep chatting. So I'm going to stop
No,
right
I'm ready.
here.
I'm
Thanks
good
for
to hop as
tuning
well. I'm
in.
good to go.